3, 1, 2, 2. Everybody else.
Okay, if you guys haven't noticed, our bells are not turned back on today. So, you guys should have 93 and 94 completed. I did not ask you to turn those in last class, nor did I ask you to turn those in for homework. So, you can either turn those in the Google Classroom right now, or if you'd rather just put your name on the hard copies and bring those to me, that is fine as well. But I need you to do that here at the start of class. And near the end of class, you should be looking over your test review number 88, so you should probably get that out of your binder also. All of that's under bell work. So again, if you're having any issues with the Google Classroom, feel free to just give me the hard copy. You don't have to fight with the Google Classroom. That's good. I'll get those back to you today.
To put the numbers on each one?
That's fine, I know what they are. Okay, so got one new piece of information for you about your test on Friday. One important reminder, and then I've got a little bit of extra practice for you guys on handout 95. So I'll talk about that in just a second. So the thing that I've already told you that is an important reminder is that this is a grade replacement opportunity. In fact, it's the only grade replacement opportunity we have second semester. So if on Friday your Chapter 5 test score is higher than your 5.1, 5.4 quiz score, then it can replace that 5.1, 5.4 quiz score. So that's only if it helps you. Although I don't know, as much use substitution practice as we've done, I think it would be pretty hard to not do as well as you did on the 5.1, 5.4. So that is an opportunity, and we only provide that because it covers some of the same material, so it's fair, and to encourage you to put in a little bit extra effort because you have a chance to get your grade to bump up a little bit more. The other thing about the test I need to tell you is we have decided to make it a little bit longer, which means it splits it up over 2 days. So on Friday, we will do the no calculator part. I believe it's 9 multiple choice and 1 FRQ, so what you're used to. And then next class, which would be next Wednesday because we don't have school on Monday, there's one more FRQ and like another 5 or 6 multiple choice or something. So if anything, that buys you more time to study in between the first and the second half. I don't think that really changes anything about how you study, but that is what we have decided to do. Okay, and then today's handout, 95. I'm going to give you some directions here and explain this because as we get closer to the AP exam, I give quite a few practice FRQs that kind of work out in a similar fashion. So don't start on this yet. I'm actually going to set a 15-minute timer and ask you to try one of these specifically. We're only going to look at 2 of these like this today, and I'll give you the rest of time to look over your review and start your studying or continue your studying. But what I have printed out for you, bless you, is all 6 of the FRQs from 2022. So when you guys take your AP exam this spring, you will have 6 FRQs. The first 2 allow a calculator. The last 4 do not allow a calculator. I chose 2022 because, I don't know, it's a little bit more recent. Maybe may seem a little more relevant to you. Although, of course, calculus has not changed that much. So if I gave you an older set, then that is good. But it also kind of shows you what level of difficulty you guys have coming up. So kind of scanning through here, FRQ2 is a topic we haven't talked about yet, so I wouldn't put any worry into that one looking weird. And FRQ5, we've not put any time into any part of that yet, so that one would look totally unfamiliar to you, and I don't want you to stress out about it. We still have some more topics to teach, so you'll learn how to do those during that time. But some of this should be more familiar than others. So specifically, the two FRQs I'd like us to look at today, and FRQ 6, although we're not going to do 6 as a group, but you're certainly welcome and encouraged to try it on your own. So when we have these, typically what I will do is set a 15-minute timer, which is what I'm about to do in a minute, because 15 minutes is how much time you have on average on the real AP exam. So when you do the first two FRQs that allow a calculator, they will give you 30 minutes. Then when you get the next 4 FRQs, they give you an hour. So on average, 15 minutes is what they expect you to be able to do. So when I set a timer, when we do it this way in class, it kind of helps you figure out if you have to work faster or if you can slow down, and how much time you have budgeted to check your answers and to dig deeper and all of that kind of stuff. So I will give you more directions when the timer is up, but the first one, again, we're only going to do 2 of these today. 2 of them you don't even know how to do yet, and the other ones just don't really necessarily apply that much to us. But these 2 would potentially help you with your test on Friday. So this is kind of a double, we're getting AP practice and Chapter 5 practice. So the first one I'd like you to do is FRQ 1. So if you look a little bit below the directions, and again, I'll talk about that afterwards. You don't have to do anything but try it. This was a calculator FRQ, so I want you to read it. I want you to try to work it out. Try to write the justification that you think that they're expecting. Just kind of see how it goes for you. So at this time, please start now. Your best effort on FRQ 1 for 15 minutes. And you're not getting graded for accuracy or anything here, so it's no pressure, no stress. Treat it like it's a real test question, please. And of course, this is just on your own. Just not work with your neighbors, not look at your notes. Just kind of see how you would handle each of these things. You're 6 minutes in, which means you have 9 minutes left. still have about 4 minutes. Okay, and stop. So there was 15 minutes. So I try not to give any real hints here, but a couple things that are likely to have happened. Either A, you felt like you ran out of time, which typically the only thing that you can do about that is to know the basics a little bit better so that some of the easier parts you don't have to spend as long on. Or you may have finished several minutes ago, and in a moment when you check your answers and score it, you may realize, you know, I thought of this, but I didn't write it down. Or, oh, I knew that, I just didn't think about it. And with those couple extra minutes, that can make a big difference. So the next part of this is, I'm very picky about this as far as grading goes, but I want us to check our answers, and I'm going to do the first one up on the board here. So right here, just so you know, if you want to have it in front of you, I guess you can do that, but I'm going to put it on the board. So I have a bit.ly link here that you could type in, and Let me type that in real fast. It will take you to the actual scoring guide that was used that year. So we can see what our answers were and how they divided up the 9 points. Try this instead. Sorry, my computer's being slow. So I'm going to pull that up, but the most important part of this is that we identify the things that you missed and to make corrections. So the part that I will be picky about, you can see in the directions up there, it needs to be done in a different color. I think that's beneficial for you because when you start reviewing, you can see what it is that you originally had versus what you didn't think about. And it helps me because when I take grades on these, I can see if there's common mistakes. Now, if you don't have any other colors than what you use, I've got a whole box of colored pencils and pens that you can borrow. Just put it back when you're done, please. But just to be clear, please make sure you listen to this. I will not give full credit if you do your corrections in the same color. That doesn't help you in the long term, and it doesn't help me see what it was that you didn't think about. Especially in our AP review, I try to tailor it to what I think helps the majority of the people. And if you guys don't do that correctly, then I'm not getting the input back from you guys correctly. So if you have, pull up that bit.ly link. Again, I'm doing this first one for you so you don't have to do it. But here's the actual scoring guide from College Board. So 2022 scoring guide. So we can scroll down. Here's part A. So they give some notes here about some specific common things that students may do, but it looks like this part A, only had 1 point. And it was this right here. Because it said, write, but do not evaluate. You didn't have to evaluate it. Now, if you wanted to say A of t, that's fine because they defined it. If you wanted to, instead of saying A of t, you wrote down 450 square root of sine of 0.62t, that's okay too. That's the same thing. Personally, I think it's better to just do A of t, because if you miscopy it, then it's not correct, and you would lose that point. So, if you got that point, just put a +1 by it. If you didn't get that point, make your correction out to the side in a different color so that you can look back at that and remember what to do later. Okay, part B. Now again, I'm really just kind of helping you figure out how to use this. I'm not so much talking about the math at this point. I'll talk about that later. All right, part B. Find the average value in vehicles per hour from t = 1 to t = 5. All right, looks like they gave 2 points for this question. So again, kind of same format. They talk about some common things that come up and how you might could get the second point but not the first point and all that kind of stuff. But to get the first point, you need to have this. They expect to see this set up. Now, of course, you could say 1/4 or you could say divided by 4. That all means the same thing. If it's arithmetic, if it's equivalent arithmetic, then it's fine. It doesn't. You don't have to have 1 over 5 minus 1. You can have 1/4, or you could have that integral over 4. But it looks like they gave 1 point if you wrote this down, which if you got the answer, you knew how to do that. But if you just threw it in your calculator and you didn't write this down, then that's what you need to learn from, because you would not get that point. And then the other point comes from the answer. The answer was 375.537, or they would accept 375.536. Remember, they always want you to round the 3 decimal places, or you can truncate to 3 decimal places. They don't care. Either one of those is fine. So, give yourself a point if you have this written down. Give yourself a point if you got the answer. Yeah.
So I did like the I did the integral and I divided the answer that I got from the integral by 4. Would that get the point?
If your work shows that's what you did, then that would be fine. Yeah.
So say you like had the equations and you had the answers, but you didn't put the units. Would they count out like the whole point off?
Sometimes yes and sometimes no. On this question, you wouldn't lose that because if you read the question part B, it says in vehicles per hour. You see how it's in the question?
Yeah.
So it's implied, whatever you say is implied to be in vehicles per hour. So they would not count that against you at that time. But in general, I think you guys should just make a habit out of the units because they are not very consistent. Sometimes I give a point if all of your units are right. Sometimes I give you a point if the units in a certain part's right. Sometimes the units are given to you because they phrase it in the question. Sometimes they just don't give you points for them. But of course, you never know what they want. So better to just make a habit out of trying to do correct units. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this, but if you have like very weird specific cases or unusual ways to work it and you're not sure if you got those 2 points, again, most of the time that doesn't apply because this is the easy way. But you're welcome to read that and see if there's something else. Yes, Grace?
So the rate is like the integral of the equation or the function given? Or it is like the rate itself?
The A of t is the rate at which vehicles arrive. So if you integrate that, you would get the total number of vehicles per hour. Divide that by 4 to get the average. Again, I'm not diving into the math part of it right now. There's more to this, but right now I'm just talking about the grading only. Okay, part C also had 2 points. So to get the first point, you needed to show that you considered the derivative of A at 1. So not that you did it in your head, not that you just did it in your calculator, but in your work, do you have that you thought about the derivative of A at 1? Because if you don't, you can't get that point. That's the show in your work. Anything that crosses your mind and gets you to the answer is things that they're likely to want to see. As basic or as obvious as it may seem to you, they don't know you. They don't know what is obvious, yeah.
Do I have to have A of 1 equals 1 to 48 point, or can I just, because in my answer I just said that A of 1 is greater than 0?
That should be fine.
Okay.
See, now when they say this, they don't say that you had to show that A prime of 1 is this. It's just that you considered it.
Yep.
So somewhere in the work, you showed that you thought about the derivative of A at 1. But if you didn't put that, you don't get that point. This is what I'm talking about. If you had extra time at the end, there's a good chance you knew that, but there's also a good chance you didn't put your pencil to your paper and write it down. Okay, and then the other point was the answer. Because that was positive, it is increasing. So you had to have that as increasing the answer, and you had to have justification. Because the derivative of A at 1 is positive. But again, you didn't have to even state that it was on 148 something, just that it was positive. So 2 points there. Now I worked this one yesterday. Now of course I have a little more practice with integration and how these pieces fit together, and I know what to do right away when it says average value, and I don't have to put too much thought into that. Of course you guys can get there as well. But when I got to part D, I had to slow down quite a bit. And this is kind of common for FRQs. Usually the first few parts should sound pretty familiar if you know all the things you're supposed to know. But then they like to throw a part at you that is phrased in a weird way and forces you to kind of dig deeper here. So again, we're not diving into the math part right now. I just want you to see how it was scored and how you can use this document to figure that out. But part D had 4 points. So look at your work. Did you ever show, because if you did it only in your head, that doesn't count. Did you ever show that you thought about the derivative of n equaling 0? If so, put a +1 next to it. You get 1 point if you figured out where that happened, and there's two values that make that happen. They're calling them A and B. So you had to figure out that that happens at 1.469 and 3.598. You had to show both of those to get that point. You could get both those from the calculator, but if you didn't write them down, then you missed it. For the third point, you needed to figure out that the greatest number of vehicles in line is 71. So if you have that, you get a point. If you don't get that point. And then for the justification, this one's a little more complicated. Probably if you try to justify it in words, you probably have some holes in your justification or your logic. It's probably not foolproof. The best and easiest justification is this candidates test. Testing the endpoints, A and 4, and the critical numbers in between, which was B. So if you had the candidates test showing that you tested those things, that counts as justification. Candidates test is the easiest way to justify absolute max or absolute min. Okay, so finish writing down your corrections there in a different color. Again, in a few weeks or a couple months, you look back at this one, you can look at the color stuff and you can see what you misread, misunderstood, didn't know, and it's a little more efficient to work with. But also, count up out of 9. Remember, these are always scored out of 9. And at the top of your page, if you would just write, again, I'm not grading this out of accuracy or anything like that, but for your knowledge and for my knowledge, right at the top of your page, how many out of 9 you got. 2 out of 9, 7 out of 9, whatever you got. Okay, and again, I'm not going to dive into this today, but if you look at the last part of the directions here, the stuff that I have done to try to make this as easy as possible for you. So, unless you just ace an FRQ and you felt super comfortable with it, which is almost never, because FRQs are the hardest part of our AP exam, there's going to be something that you didn't know what to do, didn't know why you needed to show this, didn't know why they approached it the way they approached it. So you could Google search AP Calculus 2022 FRQ1 video, and there's hundreds if not thousands of videos of people who work these out. In fact, there's a lot of math teachers that kind of race to be the first ones to like work them out when they're released. I picked out one of them. So if you went to this bit.ly link, it's a video of someone going over this FRQ and how they came to those answers and why the justification is what it is. So maybe not today, maybe not before Friday, but someday you might want to go to that video and say, I just didn't understand anything about Part D. Skip to the video, go to Part D, and you can get a quick explanation, and that would help you if you saw something like that in the future. So I'm trying to put all of this up here to make this as easy as possible. Remind you to spend 15 minutes, a quick little bit.ly link where you can check your answers and score it, putting in a different color so that it helps inform me and inform future you on what you need to work on, and one of thousands of videos that you could watch going over it to get the help that you need to get. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing one more time. Oh, the other thing about FRQs, I do have the hard data. I'm not going to go and find it right now. But one of the biggest misconceptions about AP exams, or at least AP Calculus, is that you guys think, or you're used to, you have to have a 60% to pass. And if you guys get like a 70 on something, you feel like you failed it. Your AP exam, you don't have to score that high. Typically, to get a 3 on the AP exam, like you're looking at like, again, I have the exact numbers and I'll share them with you sometime, but it changes year to year. It's like the ACT, it's a scale score. Depending on how well everyone does or how badly everyone does, they change the cutoff scores. If the average score is low, they consider it to be a hard test and the cutoff scores are lower. But if the averages are high, then they consider it to be an easier test and the cutoff scores are higher. But typically 50% would get you a 3 and you could pass the AP exam with that. So with that being said, so FRQ is the hardest part. 50% would get you passing on the AP exam. What would you guess the average score was of this FRQ when they took this a couple years ago?
40%.
Well, not percents, because it's out of 9.
Oh.
4 out of 9, 3 out of 9.
3 out of 9, because that's what I got.
This one was 3.22.
That's what I thought.
So
You
usually,
said person, not person.
hmm?
Oh, wait. I didn't know we could go like 3 point something. Otherwise, I said, would have said 3.22.
I'm sure.
Had that on the tip.
So generally, the average is lower than you guys expect. So I don't expect you to go into the AP exam ready to try to make 9s on everything. But take your score that you got today, whatever it is, even if it's a 1, and you need to find the next point or 2 or 3 that is pretty realistic, that wouldn't take a lot of work to get if you saw an FRQ like this again. Because even if you had a 1 and you figured out, man, I could get these 3 points pretty easily without studying for 20 hours, then next time you could maybe make a 4, and that makes a big difference. If you're scoring above average on FRQs, then that is a good sign for you on the AP exam. Okay, so we're going to do one more, but is there any questions about this process of what I'm wanting you to get out of this? Okay, the other one I'd like you to do today, again, I'm picking it because I think it could benefit you on the test, on Friday's test, so it counts double, was FRQ3. This one is no calculator. And I will tell you, well, I won't tell you. I'll tell you at the end. So, let's do 15 minutes, do the best that you can, try to learn from your mistakes from the first time. If you quit too early and could have squeezed out an extra point or 2, address that. If you didn't work fast enough, address that. But go ahead and start. And when the timer's up, I will tell you the average score on this one. And then I will let you pull up the scoring guide on your Chromebook, make corrections in a different color. And then you can watch the video if you want to. Otherwise, the rest of class will be some time for you to just work on your test review and study for your Chapter 5 test. down to 5 minutes. And stop. So there was 15 minutes. Now what I wanted to tell you, but I held back here, is that this year, of all of these FRQs, this one actually had the lowest average. And again, I like to point that out to you because if you read it and you feel like it's difficult and you struggle to get started and you feel like you're not doing it correctly, if you stick with it, the average on this one only ended up being 2.36. So even if you squeezed out 3 of the points, and you could get 2 points just from part A. If you could get at least 3 points there, then you're already above average, which again goes a long way towards passing. So what I'd like you guys to do next, and then you'll have some more flexibility, but I'd like you to do this on your own. Pull up the scoring guide. You got to go down several pages to find this FRQ. See where the 9 points were scored, what the answers were. Grade it yourself. Write your score out of 9 on the top, and do your corrections in a different color. Then if you want to watch that video that goes over it, you're welcome to if you have headphones. If you'd like to do that tonight, that's fine. If you want to do that in a month, that's great. If you, I don't know, if some of that seems familiar, like it might be on your test on Friday, and you didn't know how to do it, then maybe you should do it sooner rather than later. But do that for me at least, and then if you would like to use the rest of your class time to look over your test review and study, that would be perfectly fine. But with our new bell schedule today, we get out at 1:55, so y'all have just under 25 minutes of class time. So again, I guess the main thing, and I'm sure I'll say this 1,000 times, the main thing I want you to see out of sharing this average and having you practice this is I think that if most of you got 3 points on this, you would feel like you did terrible. But really 3 is not too bad. Of course, it's better if you can squeeze out 4 or 5 or 6 points, because then that takes off less pressure on the other FRQs. But even if you got 3 of the points, that's still pretty good, especially since we haven't really done AP review yet.
I didn't do the 0, 9,
I don't think you take this point, so I think we get those 2.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I believe so, yeah. You can read down here though, and you can see in the scoring notes, if they address that, those would be the most common things. No, yeah, so they wanted to see the calculus set up, not just jump straight into the answer. That's what I talk about sometimes, like, if you can get the answer, then some of that other stuff is kind of obvious, but they sometimes expect to see it for points, and sometimes they don't, so.
I think they expect to see the integrations.
Again, like, that what you're saying to me tells me that you understand that those are the same, but based on what you wrote on your paper, I don't think they can give you that first point.
Mr. Johnson, so here, I wrote, or I showed that it's 6, but I actually wrote 7.
And that's sometimes too when you guys do word explanations, justifications.
Yeah.
Like, you could say the right thing.
Is that justification?
Not really, because why is it going down here? But you didn't write that. If you
said that this is less than 0, this is greater than 0, this is greater than 0, this is less than 0. I think that would be a much stronger argument. But you're telling me when you think it goes up and down, but I don't really know why you think it's going up or down. But yeah, sometimes like you can say the right thing that gets you the points, but then if you say something incorrect because you're talking too long, then you can still lose points. So.
I'm also trying to use those two while still explaining something.
Yeah, just do it perfect.
Same.
Yeah.
I just don't-
So on. Where does it
Thanks,
say
guys.
G is decreasing because G prime of X is less than or equal to 0.
Okay.
I put that.
I didn't even think about two big
Oh, yeah. Well, they show it that way too. F prime is less than or equal to 1.
Yeah, I'm talking about, the reason they put, because it says that, it's 0 to 5 because G prime of X is less than 0. But.
Oh, yeah, but that's equivalent. So that's-
Six.
Right, G prime X minus one, F prime of X minus one, would that count against?
I don't know, let me see what the scoring says.
Someone like mentioned it, but I'm not sure.
Or does it say anything else?
Considers G prime of X, and then
Okay,
answers.
is this what G prime is?
Yes, G prime of
Okay,
X.
well, if that's equal to G prime and you showed that, then that would be fine.
They're not, they're pretty picky, but they're not that
But the
picky.
Just making sure.
If you do something that, if you write something that's exactly equivalent,
Like
that's
S starts
fine.
easier than this, right? Or like 10 something. Yeah, like once I go through them, they're not hard, but like I definitely didn't get them like.
One other thing I want to point out before, as you guys wrap this up, but I have said this before, but this matters a little bit more in FRQs. I was actually practicing one of the other ones while y'all were doing this one. I don't want to tell you which one it is or spoil it because someday I may ask you to do it. But in your work for Part D here, like you should have been finding at 7 was part of your work. Yes? And so you had these area parts that was like this, and all of that adds up to -1/2. Yes, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, just a reminder, on FRQs, you don't have to do any arithmetic. If you don't put that, but you have this, that's still fine. That's still worth the point. If your arithmetic is equivalent to what they say the answer is, they will accept that. So, I'd kind of like to tell you which one I did on one of the other FRQs, but it was pretty long, nasty multiplication and addition in a no calculator, but you didn't have to do any of that because you don't have to simplify any arithmetic at all. If it's equivalent to the answer, you'll get the point. Okay, if y'all have other things about that you'd like to ask, just call me over. Again, I don't know more than that document says, so sometimes my guess is as good as yours, but. How did that one go? 8 out of 9? Nice.
You're just gonna, you don't count.
I'm telling you, even if you got 1, it's fine, as long as you find another point or 2 or 3 that you could get next time. As long as you make improvements, because you're going to see, I'm going to show you like 5 more of that type, because that's a very common type.
It's always just annoying to me because like after I see the answer, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I just didn't think about it that way, I guess.
Well, when I worked this one yesterday, I was doing this candidates test, I did 0, 7, and 4, not 5, because I didn't think about the -1, so.
Well, I realized that I got this wrong.
Yeah, this would be
Run additional so would I leave this 27 because would be an incorrect
It
justification?
should be 11 times, right? You don't have this house.
It depends on the FRQ. Like the one on your last test had a canon test at the last part, and it was like 1 point if you found the critical number, 1 point if you found the
Minus
correct
seven.
values at the endpoint and the critical number,
I was just
and 1
confused
point
'cause on the
if you
board here
stated what the final answer was correctly. So
And that's not.
if it was graded the same as that one, you would lose the
Because he didn't
second
add
point,
the one.
but could still potentially get the first one. But if you didn't get the critical number or didn't think to look for the critical number, you lost all 3 points, because it was part of all 3. It just depends. Sometimes they're pickier than others, so we just kind of have to aim as high as possible.
I don't understand
Oh, I see, yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes my head gets like harder when I'm actually doing it on paper.
I feel like he just like did it and like did a huge smudge on his forehead. Me and Samuel just did it.
Why did it's the first I saw it. All I know is it's Apple.
No, that's fair.
So I never think about that one.
That's a good question. For like, so the Canvas test, I got the numbers wrong, but I got the values of like this no fixed value. Did that like still count as a point? Like,
How they,
I mean, they said like that like you get point if you consider supposed to do like G prime of X. I mean, I just didn't do it correct. Like I got the wrong
Okay,
values.
if you
except for-
consider G prime of X and you have that written down somewhere,
Yeah.
right over here.
Yeah.
Okay, then to me that would be a 20.
And then.
Now justification, I don't know if they give you the justification point, because your candidate's stuff is not correct.
Yeah.
You probably lose that one. But then if you accidentally got the right answer, they probably give you that.
I'll give myself
7 out of 9? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's still okay, I guess.
You.
You just did that. Is anybody better on the test? That's okay. That's all.
Yeah, these are harder than the test.
We use real FRQs on the test.
The test one, the last test one was much harder than this one. The Snowblow one was
I think that the first FRQ you did in there is harder than the second one.
Really?
On this, the first one, I wrote.
That part you did
Is it-
pretty tough.
but it's-
Like,
Yeah,
I
know.
I worked that one in the past, and when I redid it the other day, I still had to redo it like 5 times to try to be careful.
Where?
What are they saying and what are they wanting me to do?
I didn't know how to do it. And I did the wrong answer.
We were supposed to do the back.
That was before
Are you
the
serious?
class that test. No,
Are you
it's
serious?
not, it's supposed to do the back. Yeah, it's about a test, right?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's due by the test?
Yeah.
Not today.
I mean, you should have it done.
Showing the back is 0.8 points below average.
Well, I thought it was.
Tough luck.
Guys, I forgot to put number 88 in Google Classroom, which I do want to give you points for,
You just aren't as smart as
but I did just now do that, so. You can now put it in Google Classroom if you'd like to. I will also ask for any of that stuff, late work, incomplete work, test review, anything else you have from this unit, you'll need to turn in before we start the test on Friday.
Is 88 due when?
You should have 88 to turn in before class Friday.
Okay.
You should have it finished already, because I've already gave you a chance to ask your questions. I'm not going to grade it. How's that? You told me 3 on the first one.
Oh, 0 on the next one.
0?
Yeah.
Okay, well, find, it's something you get a point or 2 on this time.
Well, yeah.
I think that part A is pretty important.
Part A I should have known how to do, but I didn't think about it, so I just put down random numbers. 3 and 4. So if I know I'm gonna fail the AP exam, should I come anyways?
It's your time.
True, yeah. How long is it, like 6 hours? That's 3 hours. Oh, that's fine. Same difference, that's still more. True. Yeah, but you know, that's sort of what.
I got a 9, so you got a 9. Okay, 5, great.
$40.50.
Remember, you were just writing.
Going to work instead.
But you're also saying average people that have had about 4 years of papers and done computers.
What if I don't know? Or this big.
And that type is a very common type. That happens at work too.
Really?
Of course, they may be sick of doing it, so it may not be on this shit.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
I feel like having like a niche interest in flight simulators is an interesting one.
Sorry, the other thing I was gonna say though, our test FRQs should be easier to use, even if they're released FRQs. Because, like, when we gave you an FRQ on your second test, it was gonna be about the content we had just talked about. When we gave you an FRQ in Unit 3, it was about the content we had just been doing. Whereas the real FRQs were like, yeah, if you do the last unit, and then first unit, and then the third unit, and it's all scrambled up, which makes it harder.